Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with the keywords that made headlines this week. With South Korea now in a polling blackout ahead of next week's local elections, the final surveys released before the ban are pointing to razor-thin races in several key battlegrounds. South Korea's central bank has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged for an 8th straight meeting, while slightly raising its economic growth forecast for this year. BTS made a triumphant return to the American Music Awards by winning the night's top honor, leading a major sweep for K-pop artists at one of the biggest events in the U.S. music industry. President Lee Jae-myung is urging active fiscal policy for the latter half of 2026 to prepare for changes after the war ends in the Middle East and to reap greater potential growth. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Deploying economic measures is necessary to preemptively address developments that will unfold after the war ends in the Middle East. This was according to President Lee Jae-myung at Tuesday's cabinet meeting, which also serves as an emergency economic meeting, as the South Korean government draws up its economic strategy for the second half of 2026.
올해가 잠재 성장률 반등의 원년이 되도록 재정의 적극적 역할을 바탕으로 치밀하고 속도감 있는 정책 대응을 당부드립니다.
He also called for tightening belts to conserve funds so they can be used in areas deemed essential.
불효불급한 재정 지출은 과감하게 줄여야 합니다. 국민이 맡긴 세금과 권력을 오로지 국민만을 위해서 제대로 잘 사용하는 것이 바로 우리의 책임입니다.
Officials noted that the country's nominal growth rate is expected to reach nearly 10% this year, as they say the local economy grew and recovered fast despite the prolonged Middle East conflict.
As growth improves, tax revenue will increase, and these are likely to push up prices and interest rates. We will try to minimize those concerns as we devise a growth strategy plan fit for the new era.
On top of imminent tasks to tamp down higher prices, the authorities plan to embark on structural reform in the public, financial, and labor sectors.
지속적으로 우상향할 수 있게 하는 게 정말로 중요한 것 같아요. 그러려면 우리 사회의 모든 분야를 다 바꿔야 됩니다.
Officials call the timing a golden hour for an economic rebound. It also coincides with the start of President Lee's second year in office after taking the oath of office last June. Yoon Jung-min, ArirangNews.
Ahead of Ocean Day this Sunday, President Lee Jae-myung visited the southern port city of Busan, where he stressed the importance of freedom of navigation.
A front line that determines the survival and future of the nation. That was the assessment made by President Lee Jae-myung on the strategic importance of the ocean as he celebrated the 31st Ocean Day at an event on Wednesday in the southeastern port city of Busan.
글로벌 해양 통상 질서와 공급망이 재편되는 이 불확실성의 시대에 세계 경제의 핏줄인 바다의 안전과 주도권은 그 어느 때보다도 중요해졌습니다.
He went on to emphasize the importance of freedom of navigation.
대한민국은 유라시아와 인도 태평양을 잇는 중심축이 되어 주변국의 자유로운 항행과 열린 무역 질서를 수호할 것입니다.
President Lee promised to build a global maritime powerhouse, envisioned in 1996 by former President Kim Il-sung. He also vowed to nurture logistics and port businesses as national strategic industries and turn Busan into the country's maritime capital.
이는 대한민국이 치열한 글로벌 경쟁에서 살아남기 위한 생존 전략인 동시에 해양 강국의 비전을 일자리와 지역의 활력으로 직결시키는 균형 성장 전략의 핵심이기도 합니다.
The government plans to create a maritime cluster in Busan, encompassing related public institutions, a court specialized in maritime affairs, and a regional investment bank. South Korea observes Ocean Day on May 31st to highlight the importance and value of the ocean. Later in the day, President Lee was briefed on preparations for an upcoming meeting of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee in the port city. Noting the power of K-culture and K-heritage, he instructed officials to fully prepare public transport, accommodation, and safety of overseas guests. Yoon Jung-min, ArirangNews.
The race for Busan mayor is drawing growing national attention as candidates offer competing visions for the country's second largest city. Our Moon Hye-ryun went there to file this report.
Busan is shaping up to be one of the defining battlegrounds of Korea's June 3rd local elections, with both major party candidates making their case to voters as the race heats up. On Tuesday, Democratic Party candidate Chun Jae-soo, who served as the inaugural Minister of Oceans and Fisheries under President Lee Jae-myung, attended an international cooperation signing ceremony at Busan National University's Hydrogen Ship Technology Center, an event that speaks directly to his campaign pledge of making Busan a global maritime capital.
This project will not only make Busan the center of international standards for liquid hydrogen, it will generate around 3 trillion won in production value, 1.8 trillion won in added value, and create over 11,000 jobs.
People Power Party candidate and incumbent Mayor Park Hyung-jun, meanwhile, spent his afternoon meeting older adults at a community welfare center, where he laid out his welfare vision, pledging to expand AI and digital technology across the city's welfare centers and senior community spaces.
Busan has a large aging population, which makes welfare policy critically important. That's why we're upgrading our welfare centers with the latest digital technology and AI to better care for our older adults.
The two candidates are painting very different pictures of Busan's future. Chun looking forward, pitching the city as a global maritime and technological hub, while Park is focusing closer to home, addressing the everyday concerns of an aging city through welfare and community.
With 8 days left until polling day, both candidates are going all out to win over voters in what has tightened into one of the most competitive mayoral races of this election cycle. Moon Hye-ryun, ArirangNews, Busan.
Also in Busan, attention is turning to the parliamentary by-elections, where an increasingly fierce three-way race is unfolding amid escalating political tensions among the candidates.
Alongside the upcoming local elections, the June 3rd vote also features high-stakes parliamentary by-elections, with 14 National Assembly seats up for grabs. One of the most fierce battlegrounds in parliamentary by-elections is here in Busan Bukap District, a tight race between three candidates. The ruling Democratic Party has fielded Ha Jong-woo, a former senior secretary to the president, on AI. Ha is anchoring his campaign on transforming the district into the nation's premier AI education and economic hub, with Busan's first AI-specialized high school and an AI tech valley to boost local education, childcare, and the economy simultaneously. Meanwhile, the main opposition People Power Party has looked to former Veterans Minister Bang Min-sik. Park is vowing to tackle long-standing local bottlenecks in transportation and urban renewal through an infrastructure overhaul, presenting a nearly 9-kilometer stretch of the Gyeongbu railway line that currently cuts right through the district.
I don't let myself get swayed by fluctuating poll numbers. Instead, I place my trust entirely in the true sentiment and the heart of the residents here in the district.
Adding to the heavy-hitting lineup is former PPP floor leader Han Dong-hoon, who is running with a bold regional development blueprint. Han's platform centers on building a K-complex arena and transforming the Nakdong River area into a vibrant Nakdong Golden Belt that blends live entertainment, tourism, and local commerce.
I look to bring the kind of development this district missed out on for far too long. Whether I'm running as an independent or with a party, voters recognize that I can truly deliver their promises.
As the race enters its final stretch, with three heavyweight candidates offering vastly different visions for the region's future, it is now up to the voters to decide which blueprint will shape the future of their city. An Sung-jin, ArirangNews, Busan.
South Korea is now in a polling blackout ahead of next week's local elections, with the final election surveys released before the ban pointing to razor-tight races in several key backgrounds. For this week's Weekly Focus, our An Sung-jin breaks down the latest voter sentiment.
With just days to go before Korea's local elections, we now enter a polling blackout. Starting from May 28th, publishing or quoting new opinion polls is strictly banned. Now, this is done to ensure a fair race. But before that, let's turn to some poll figures in key battlegrounds as we look at some razor-thin margins.
Now for the Seoul mayoral race, the ruling Democratic Party candidate Jung Won-ho leads at 42%, with the main opposition People Power Party's incumbent mayor Oh Se-hoon chasing at 36%. This 6 percentage point gap sits tightly within the margin of error. Crucially, nearly 20% of voters remain undecided, meaning these fence-sitters may decide the capital. Now let's turn to Daegu, another fierce battleground. The TP's Kim Bu-kyum holds 42%, while the PPP's Chu Kyung-ho is right on his heels at 38%. Again, an 18% undecided bloc keeps this race entirely up for grabs. Meanwhile, the story changes in Busan. The TP's Jeon Jae-soo has secured an outside-the-margin lead at 46%, comfortably ahead of the PPP's Park Hyung-jun at 34%. Candidates have just under a week left to win over a massive chunk of undecided voters, but why do these polls matter so much? Historically, final pre-blackout polls have accurately mirrored the final results. Take the 2022 Seoul mayoral race, where the PPP's Oh Se-hoon cruised to a 20 percentage point victory, which almost exactly matched the final polls. The story was the same in 2018, when the DP's Park Won-soon won by nearly 30 percentage points. But polls aren't always a crystal ball, and that is why attention is focused on winning over voters. For these local elections, the mayoral races, alongside high-stakes parliamentary by-elections in Pyeongtaek and Busan Bukgap, are sitting well within the margin of error. Predicting this election is uniquely difficult, as following the former president's impeachment, independent and moderate voters have surged. Shy voters who hide their true leanings from polls may also emerge as a key variable. The 6-day blackout aims to prevent inaccurate polls from unfairly swaying voters. All eyes are now glued to how public sentiment will shift during this blackout period to influence next week's ballot box.
Korea has unveiled a much-anticipated plan to develop its own nuclear-powered submarine as President Lee Jae-myung held the first meeting of the Future Defense Strategy Committee on Tuesday. Our Oh Se-young has the details.
Korea has set out its first ever plan to develop conventionally armed nuclear-powered submarines, pledging close communication with the United States and strict compliance to non-proliferation rules. The Defense Ministry unveiled a roadmap Tuesday, naming it the Changbogo-N project, a nod to Korea's first naval submarine, the ROKS Changbogo, with the N standing for next generation, nuclear-powered and new advanced technologies. This comes as North Korea continues to grow submarine-launched nuclear missile threats. Seoul's goal is to launch the first vessel in the mid-2030s, with deployment expected after the late 2030s. The submarine would use low-enriched uranium reactors designed for long-cycle operation to minimize fuel replacement. Development will be local, with Seoul seeking independent maintenance and sustainment capabilities. The program will manage the submarine's full life cycle, from design and construction to operation, fuel management and decommissioning. The ministry also laid out 3 non-proliferation commitments, stating Korea will neither possess nor develop nuclear weapons in any form. Seoul also pledged to coordinate closely with Washington on securing and managing low-enriched uranium while fulfilling its non-proliferation obligations. Korea will in fact establish a safeguard system with the International Atomic Energy Agency, especially for nuclear-powered submarines. The announcement follows moves by Seoul and Washington to implement security commitments agreed by Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Donald Trump and outlined in a joint fact sheet last year, including U.S. cooperation on Korea's nuclear-powered submarines initiative and Seoul's push for civil uranium enrichment and spent fuel reprocessing rights.
The United States should view South Korea's request not primarily as a proliferation risk, but as an alliance adaptation issue. For the United States, supporting South Korea's nuclear power submarine ambition would strengthen allied undersea capacity at a time when China's neighbor expansion and North Korea's nuclear threat are both intensifying. A South Korean SSN capability could contribute to deterrence, sea lane security, anti-submarine warfare, and broader Indo-Pacific maritime stability.
In Washington, D.C. last week, First Vice Foreign Minister Park Yun-joo met with his counterpart, U.S. Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Alison Hooker, who will lead an interagency delegation to launch bilateral working groups in Seoul in the coming weeks. On Tuesday, President Lee said nuclear-powered submarines built on the foundation of a firm alliance with the US symbolize Korea's determination to take responsibility for peace and security on the Korean peninsula. 오수영, 아리랑뉴스.
On the economic front, the Bank of Korea has decided to hold its benchmark interest rate steady for the 8th session in a row at 2.5%. Our Kim Jin-young covers this latest decision and the prospects ahead.
The Bank of Korea has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 2.5%, but hints strongly at further rate hikes. Thursday's decision came at the first Monetary Policy Board meeting chaired by the newly appointed Governor Shin Hyun-song.
The Monetary Policy Board decided to keep rates unchanged at 2.5%. Instead of raising rates right away, we believe more time is needed to assess geopolitical risks, semiconductor growth, and their impact on inflation and growth.
Since lowering the benchmark rate to 2.5% in May last year, the central bank has kept rates unchanged for 8 straight meetings. That leaves Korea's benchmark rate frozen for more than a year, while maintaining the rate gap with the U.S. unchanged at 1.25 percentage points at the upper end. Policymakers cited elevated uncertainty at home and abroad, pointing to Middle East-related risks and inflation likely to remain above target due to higher oil prices. They also highlighted exchange rate volatility, housing prices, and household debt as areas requiring close monitoring. The decision was backed by 5 of the 7 board members, while 2, including the senior deputy governor, favored a quarter-point hike to 2.75%. The central bank also revised up this year's growth outlook to 2.6% from 2% in February. The bank credited strong chip exports tied to the AI boom for cushioning downside risks.
The Middle East conflict is expected to pose a drag on growth, but stronger semiconductor demand, IT exports, and policy support are expected to help offset some of that weakness.
Yet the latest outlook also signaled mounting inflation pressure. Consumer inflation is projected at 2.7%, while core inflation is seen at 2.4%, both higher than the latest forecast. The BOK said higher oil prices are likely to spill over into a wider range of goods. Meanwhile, speaking to reporters, Shin said policymakers remained cautious amid heightened uncertainty, yet at the same time signaled a possible rate hike later this year. He said the key issue now is when, how much, and how far rates will rise. Markets expect rate hikes as early as July or August. With the central bank signaling the need for tighter policy, the upcoming July meeting could be a key turning point. Kim Jun-ong, 아리랑뉴스.
Samsung Electronics now has a new wage system as its unionized workers have voted in favor of the deal reached between management officials and labor representatives last week. Our business correspondent Park Jin-an reports.
Following a 6-day voting period that wrapped up on Wednesday morning, Samsung Electronics' tentative 2026 wage agreement has been officially approved. The joint union negotiation team announced on Wednesday morning that the deal passed with a 73.7% approval, securing over 46,000 votes in favor. Under union rules, the agreement required participation from at least half of the eligible voters and a majority approval to pass. The vote cleared those requirements, recording a final turnout of 95.5%. The two sides agreed on a 6.2% average wage increase, along with expanded welfare benefits like a new company housing loan system worth up to 500 million Korean won, or roughly $333,000. The core of this new deal is introducing a brand new special management bonus for the Device Solutions, or DS, the company's semiconductor and electronic components division. Funded with 10.5% of agreed business performance earnings, the bonus comes with no ceiling on payouts and will be paid entirely in company stock after taxes. With brokerage firms estimating Samsung Electronics could post massive operating profits reaching up to 300 trillion won this year, the payouts could be historic. If that forecast holds, employees in high-performance units like the memory chip division could receive combined bonuses worth up to 600 million won, or roughly $400,000. Even employees in non-memory semiconductor businesses, including the system LSI and foundry divisions, are projected to receive around 210 million won in combined bonuses. Following the vote, Samsung's union and management have already made the terms of the deal official, formally signing the documents after months of negotiations. 박준환, 아리랑뉴스.
Local stocks extended their rally on Wednesday with the Kospi surging to a new high as SK hynix entered the trillion-dollar market cap club amid the ongoing AI chip boom. Cha Yoon-gang reports.
South Korea's benchmark Kospi surged nearly 5% at market open on Wednesday on the back of a sharp tech-driven market rally and went to a record high of 8,450. It opened at 8,242.12, up 194.61 points, or 2.42%, and further extended its gains. Then, the Korea Exchange temporarily paused trading on its main board after the opening bell. According to the KRX, a buy-side sidecar was activated at approximately 9:06 a.m., suspending Kospi futures buy orders for 5 minutes. A buy-side sidecar is triggered whenever the Kospi 200 futures index surges by 5% or more and holds that level for at least 1 minute. The Kospi closed at 8,228.70. The relentless rally in the memory chip sector is gaining traction, propelling the market values of both Micron Technology and SK hynix past the $1 trillion milestone for the first time. On the New York Stock Exchange, the U.S. memory chip maker Micron Technology skyrocketed nearly 20% on Tuesday local time, pushing its market capitalization past $1 trillion. Meanwhile, South Korea's SK hynix crossed the 1,600 trillion won mark in market capitalization, becoming the second domestic company after Samsung Electronics to join the $1 trillion global club. According to the company's market cap, a website tracking global market capitalizations, Samsung Electronics and SK hynix rank 11th and 12th respectively among the world's most valuable companies. Micron came 14th. Investors and analysts expect memory shortages to last in the near future, giving them unusual pricing power over the world's largest technology companies. Cha Yoon-gang, 아리랑뉴스.
The global dominance of K-pop was on full display once again at this year's American Music Awards, as BTS made a triumphant return by taking home the night's top honor, while several other Korean acts also swept major categories. Park Gon-woo has more.
Members looked stunned while some hugged each other with joy. The reactions came as BTS was announced the winner of the top honor, Artist of the Year, at the 2026 American Music Awards held in Las Vegas on Monday local time. It marked the group's second win in the category following its historic victory in 2021, when BTS became the first Asian act to receive the award, before members began their mandatory military service.
Thank you. It's an honor to have this precious award once again after everybody done their military service. Like the legendary Busta Rhymes said, it's a fan-voted award, so our biggest thanks and gratitude, as always, goes to the armies all over the world.
The group beat out 9 other nominees, including Bad Bunny and Taylor Swift, to claim the award. BTS at the AMAs also picked up 2 additional trophies, Song of the Summer for Swim, the lead track from its latest album Arirang, and Best Male K-pop Artist, sweeping all 3 categories in which the group was nominated. While AMA is considered one of the 3 major US music awards alongside the Grammys and Billboard Music Awards, the AMAs are widely seen as a stronger reflection of public popularity, as winners are determined through fan votes after nominees are selected over factors including streaming numbers and album sales. With BTS sweeping awards at the AMAs just 2 months after the album's release, attention is also drawn to whether BTS will be able to win a trophy at the upcoming Grammys next February. BTS hasn't won a Grammy so far. Also at the ceremony, K-pop Demon Hunters took home 4 trophies, including Song of the Year for Golden from its soundtrack and Best Soundtrack. Singer-songwriter EJ thanked fans for helping the song and the film gain tremendous support. In addition, Korea-US collaborative K-pop group Katseye also emerged as another standout winner, earning 3 awards, including New Artist of the Year. The members also expressed gratitude toward BTS for helping expand global interest in their genre. Katseye also performed its latest track release, Pinky Up. With multiple K-pop acts taking home major honors at this year's AMAs, expectations are growing for the genre to further expand its global dominance. 박건우, 아리랑뉴스.
That brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.